This meeting is being recorded.
Hey guys, welcome to the third episode of this podcast. I have Joe here with me, who brings a ton of experience again in the industry. That's the whole aim of the podcast. We bring very experienced folks on here. They share about what they've been working on, how they got started, and also pros and cons when it comes to the specific trade. So, without further ado, let's give Joe the time to introduce himself. And can you tell me a bit about your background? How did you get started, and when did you get started?
Yeah, how I got started was actually super random. Um, there was just like a sign on the back of a van from a dude that owned a company that was a couple of blocks away from my house. And I was really young at the time. I was like 19, 20 years old. And it said, "Do you want to make like, $1,000 a week or $2,000 a week or whatever it was?" And I was like, "Heck yes, I do." And so I got started into HVAC. That was a residential company. Of course, I wasn't making $2,000 a week. I think I was making like $15 an hour or something like that. But it gave me a lot of opportunity coming into the trade. That was back in, I don't know, mid 2000s. I've been involved in the HVAC trade solidly for at least 15 years. Um, it, but I started close to 20 years ago. Um, yeah, I've been doing this pretty close to 20 years consistently. Um, I'm currently working doing commercial service management and coordination with our installation and construction side. We manage in the tens of millions of dollars projects per year. Um, we also acquired a plumbing company, so we're basically a full MEP at this point. We just don't have all of the electrical in-house, but we have an engineering department and mechanical and plumbing and construction, and we do a lot of work on laboratories and clean rooms and large business and executive centers and things like that. And then some other interesting projects along the way, just kind of some more niche things that you fall into when you're working in the trade, which is one of the cool parts about it. Get to work on interesting things. We're currently working on a project right now, and they do liquid cooling for for server racks. They advertise basically for like large GPU AI clusters, and so essentially we've got this enormous cooling tower that we assemble outside, and then that does liquid cooling for the server racks inside. And each server rack has its own individual pump and flow meter and things that meter the flow as it goes through the hot and cold rails on the individual server racks and things as it goes through there. And so it's pretty cool, some of the stuff that we do and the things that we get to see, and how we get to interface with up and coming things within the market. I'm working on one place right now, and they build GPUs, and then another place over here, they're cooling GPUs that make AI, right? And so it's just kind of interesting, all of the different facets of the industries that you see. That's just on the semiconductor side. We've also got laboratories and pharmaceuticals and other things like that as well.
Got it. All right. And if you don't mind me asking, where are you located and where is the project happening, like the GPU project?
Oh, we're located in the Bay Area of Northern California.
Got it. Got
So
it.
we do work anywhere ranging from um, South Bay, San Francisco, all the Silicon Valley stuff, um, Milpitas and Sunnyvale and things like that, where Google and Facebook and all those places have their campuses at. So we're right kind of in the center of all of that technological bubble.
Definitely, definitely, and especially as you said, AI hype is just getting started. So I
It
do
really
believe,
is.
I do believe that you will be handling a lot of GPU related projects, so cooling and everything. Because if you know, Trump and Sam Altman, the OpenAI guy, they just partnered for a $500 billion investment for making data centers in Texas. And it solves the same problem, which is they are making all the big clusters of GPUs and everything on a very, very large scale. So I do
Yeah,
believe
well,
that.
we're running into a lot of things like that. Like we contract for some places all across the country, and do work for like Amazon and other things like that, tangentially through another portion. But I mean, Amazon recently has basically tapped all the power out of like North Virginia and a lot of places where they run all of their data centers. And so Amazon is now starting to lean into research into micro reactors for nuclear reactors and things like that. And with AI and things like that, it's really just going to push all of these things a lot further. There was a company I was watching a video about the other day, and they're actually located in my area. And they're doing photonic computation. So basically, they're using light for computation processes, and it's for all of these like AI and data clusters where they're moving around like petaflops of data between areas. And so it acts as a hub between these areas, and so it's another interesting thing that we're seeing that's probably going to come and just become more common, because at this point we're starting to run into this is kind of off topic of mechanical, but how small we can make transistors for computers. And so using light for transferring information with the advantage of light speed, obviously, right? That becomes a huge advantage that you can leverage for stuff like that, which we already utilize for things like fiber optics and things like that, which have huge data transfer rates. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of off topic, but also interesting and occurring right here in this same area next door to some of the other projects that we're working on.
No, definitely, and it's great insight, first of all, because there's a lot of people who, first of all, don't know about this upcoming industry. Within a bigger industry, there's this upcoming subcategory which is coming in. So, do you think that, first of all, this is a twofold question, that more futuristic, some like, I don't know how, but like, as you know that in future, next 20 or 30 years, every household might have a robot. That's like a fact that everyone has been hoping for years. But once they have that, then the small residential fixes for a HVAC person or a plumbing person, that quantity might reduce because people would be able to fix it themselves. The small fixes like bathroom or a tap water, anything like that. But at the same time, to power these systems, as you said, there will be thousand different opportunities which will come in place. So how do you see industry taking shape within next 10 or 20 years?
That's a good question. I see the mechanical service person as indispensable, really. Um, Now I see the bar for entry becoming a lot lower as we're able to integrate all of these different systems into into our units and equipment, and we can use all of these different sensors to essentially do a lot of the diagnostics for the technician. So the bar for entry becomes a lot lower, and you can just have somebody kind of walk in and they just read, whatever's on the screen or whatever spits out on their service wheel, and it tells them exactly what they need to replace, and it's essentially plug and play for a lot of the smaller consumer end things. I don't, but that still makes somebody that has to be there to replace things, that still requires a large amount of infrastructure behind it too, and there's a lot of growth in other industries that will drive a lot of the things that would make such a thing possible, right? Like we kind of have touched on so far. And so there's always opportunity, and there's always things to learn and grow inside the mechanical trade. And that's really the thing that kind of drew me to and where I found my love for the trade was because once I started and I realized how broad it really was, like you learn residential and you learn how an air conditioner works, and you're like, okay, cool, whatever, right? But then you learn what really happens in commercial and things like that, and you learn that okay, you have actual controls and reset controls and PID loops and 4 to 20 milliamp signals and PLC control systems, or you have old pneumatic control systems where you have air compressors that are running things and things like that, right? And you have chillers and VRV systems, and all of those are inverter systems, and chillers are completely different depending on even which kind you're talking about, right? They can be scrolls, they can be semi-hermetics, they can be huge centrifugal chillers that are low pressures, and they have to have purge systems on them and stuff. And so there's just so many different facets to the trade, airflow and heating and liquid cooling and dry coolers and towers. And I mean, the list is almost endless. And so if you're hungry for knowledge in something that will give you gainful employment, I think there's always going to be something for you to do in the HVAC trade. Things will change and things will just continue to get dumbed down on the consumer level, I think. But I mean, things are only going to continue to ratchet up, and we're always going to be on the cutting edge of technology because we have to meet the cutting edge of technology and its demands. And so we're part of the flux that occurs within that. And so we're always going to ebb and flow and change to some degree, but there's always going to be something to learn, and there's always going to be something that you can do. And if you like learning, then the mechanical trade is where it's at, because you learn everything from airflow to refrigeration to electrical systems to control systems to hydronics and fluids to pneumatic controls to control systems and PLCs and things like that. You know what I mean? Like the broad scope of fields that you're touching on are so wide. You're not just an electrician. You're not just a plumber, right? I have to know how fluids move and how pumps work and all of those things. And I also have to know how electricity works and how VFDs work and inverters and all these other things. And so I don't just wear one hat. I'm forced to wear many. But if you thrive in those situations, like it's really enjoyable. I love what I do.
Definitely. And you rightly put it that people would need to eventually know ins and outs and few details about each trade. And that's the main aim of the Discord community where we are what we are making, where people from multiple trades come in together and they ask questions to each other. Because if you see, there are niche communities, but there are not wide communities where people can interact and talk to each other. So that's the one of the main goals. But earlier you talked about bar for entry. And just taking a switch back to when you were starting your career. So what were, like, if you are starting out today, or if you just started out back then, what was like a roadmap kind of thing that if someone is starting out today, for example, that they get this license, get this certification, or first get an internship kind of thing. So what's the
Honestly, the mechanical trade is so kind of wild because at least where I live, it's so part the this question is broad. Uh, I guess I should back up and start there because it depends on where you live. I specifically, like I said, I'm in the United States, and I'm specifically in California. The rules change for most of the United States. It's pretty much the wild, wild west. You can do whatever you want. You need to take an EPA test and get your EPA 608 so that you can handle refrigerant. That's like $100 test and a couple hours of studying. There are many different ways to get into the field, and I probably took one of the hardest ones. But we'll back up. Geographically, it's really different. If you're talking about Canada, everything is completely different than anything I'm going to talk about. Canada has multiple like regulations and certifications that you need to go through. There's G1, G2, G3 for all of your different gas certifications, and then you have Red Seal and Blue Seal, and there's all different kinds of things that they do, and they differentiate between a lot of trades, and it's really essentially more structured like a union is, with classes and hours and things like that, and different tests and certifications that go along with it. It's more like a structured union like you might find in the United States, but really even probably ratcheted up a little bit. Um, that said, do you what do you need to get into the field? Not much more than a willingness to learn, and maybe a little bit of sadomasochism in you, because there's a lot of pain in this trade, but it also pays off. So like it's definitely different, but you can go to school, you can take certifications, you can go to trade schools and things like that. A lot of those are a roll of the dice depending on the educators that you get. You can go get an apprenticeship through a union, and you can go to school through the union and also work, and you can accrue hours, and then after you get enough hours, there's all these scheduled raises, and then you make journeyman, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of structure there to be had, and if you're a person that needs and thrives under structure, that's probably a good place for you. If you're a young person looking to get into the trade, that's also a better time to get into a union, because it does kind of like build upon hours and things like that for your pensions and tickets and retirement and stuff. All that being said, I didn't do any of those things. I didn't go to college. I didn't go to school really. I've just been to classes. I'm a non-union contractor, but a lot of the contractors that I work around on my projects are other union contractors. That's the level that we're working at. And so um, I learned everything on the job. And when I wasn't working and I came home, I studied. And I've been able to thrive under that. And I've been able to make more than I would be able to be offered at a union structure, because I was able to make my own path. Um, I was a really driven person, and I was really interested in the trade, and like I really did a lot of study on my own time, and I basically did like my own college, right? Um, and I've been able to do that. And so some people that works and some people that doesn't, and it just kind of I guess it depends. One, where are you geographically? And two, what is the best fit for you?
Got it. Right. So that's a great tip, and it's first of all great work learning everything on your own and then figuring it out, because I think that's not many people do that, and if you are willing to do that, it's a long route, but I think you will own up to it because you have done everything on your own efforts and on your own dedication. So first of all, really appreciate you talking about that. And secondly, is there is this notion, and there's multiple reports which are coming out that America eventually it's going to face a trade crisis, and it's facing a trade crisis because there's a by next 5 years there's going to be need for more like 500,000 more plumbers, like 200,000 more HVAC people. But Gen Z is not entering the trade fast enough, and there's a big gap between that. So why do you think this is happening, and what's best way to solve it according to you?
That's a good question. I agree with your initial point on what we're seeing in the forecast for the trade. I think what we're seeing is a lot of the older technicians who have a lot of experience, who've been here for a really long time. We're starting to see them phase out of the trade. And a lot of the people who stay around and do this for a long time, they really do love it. And they love what they do. And they don't work even a lot of times because they need to. You know what I mean? We we have a guy that works all over the country, and doing all sorts of big name people, and he could have retired 20, 30 years ago. You know what I mean? This man is pushing 70 years old,
Wow.
and he's running around all over the country working on data centers and stuff. You know what I mean? And he doesn't do it because he needs to. He does it because he loves it, right? And so yeah, so you're seeing a lot of those people move out of the trade, and then I think you're seeing a lot of the repercussions from what we've seen from um, just a lot of the rhetoric that we've seen in the last couple of decades, where everything pushed, if you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful, right? And that really is the mantra that was pushed for a long time. And we've shifted away from the trades, which is, what really builds this country. And not every person excels underneath a classroom setting. And so, what I wish I had known earlier is really what the trades could offer me. Because when I went to school, I was a really smart kid. I got poor grades though, because I didn't really pay that much attention. I didn't do any homework. Um, but I aced most of my tests, and like I was the first kid raising my hand in class because I knew what was going on. I was just bored, right? The classroom setting wasn't for me. And once I got into the trades and I started working with my hands, and I realized how what I do with my hands can relate to what happens in my head, the physics and everything that happened behind it, no matter what we're talking about. If we're talking about, fluid dynamics and air and refrigeration and the different, cycles that it's leveraged through and its different states of matter, or if we're talking about, electricity or something else, all of these things, what I'm doing with my hands now can relate to what I'm doing with my head. I'm so much more engaged and interested in it. And so, like, if I had known that's what was there, like, I probably would have been looking for that a lot more. But the rhetoric at the time was really just push college. So I went to college, and then I dropped out because I was bored, right? And then life caught up with me and things happened, and push came to shove, and like I jumped into the trades, and like I really loved it, and that's where I found my passion.
Definitely. And just adding one more point to it is like for anyone who's entering the trade, first of all, let's just say that there's never been a better time to enter the trade. It's just getting growing faster and faster. And second, and the most important part is while people like you are building data centers that power the AI, that what we are using to make software or making lives of blue collar workers easier, but at the same time, that trade part of it is not going anywhere. Like AI might replace your coding person, AI might replace your IT support specialist. They will replace like a phone talking agent, but it's not going to replace the trade because for at least 20 coming years or 10 coming years, because that requires, first of all, a large and a big experience as people who come to this podcast have.
The amount of infrastructure and stuff that it would take to replace us as a trade, in my opinion, is exponential upon where we're at, because you still need people to swap out components. You still need people to troubleshoot the things that are on the bleeding edge of the stuff that isn't in the computational things that have made it down to the consumer side of things. Because when you're in the trade, you realize that a lot of things start here way before they end up over here, and then eventually over here they end up getting mandated for things, and that technology becomes standard, but like when you look at certain things like chillers have been using turn down on their compressors for ages, and then we started using two-stage compressors, and then we had inverter driven compressors, and then now we have mandates based on different areas and stuff on SEER ratings and ACU ratings, depending on where you're at, and things like that for your gas furnaces and stuff. And so these things are always going to change. And while they can streamline whatever happens on the consumer end for the large amount of people that are doing it. Like, unless we're talking about like full on androids running around that somebody's practically piloting, or you got AI running, bro, like we ain't getting replaced, buddy. Like, it's not happening. It's not happening. Okay. Somebody needs to go there and like figure out what's actually happening and how to fix it, and like how it all comes together, and then how that would actually translate down to eventually the consumer level that we're talking about, where everything is streamlined. And so, like, nah, it's not going away. Not anytime soon. Not until you see Terminators running around commonly. And
No,
think about
agreed,
the
agreed.
infrastructure that's required to make Terminators, bro. Come on.
It's gonna need a huge ton of infrastructure and a ton of money from the government, so that's not gonna happen anytime soon. So I know I've taken a lot of your time, so just last one or two questions is still today, what's your major learning source? Like, where do you get all the new information from in your brain? Like, what's this source?
I mean, really, the thing is that there's so many different sources that are available nowadays. If you had asked me, like 20 years ago when I entered the trade, like I would have told you the library and like, HVAC talk forums online, because there wasn't really like YouTube and
Hmm.
podcasts and things like that. But nowadays there's so many different sources of information. It I would really just say kind of, figure out what platform suits you the most, to a certain extent, so that you can consume those things, whether they be videos or whether you're on the road all the time and you're listening to podcasts. Um, I use videos, I use podcasts, I use, manufacturers, bulletins, and things that come out from different manufacturers and distributors as things come out. There's different magazines for the trades. There's all different sources of information nowadays. Like, it's honestly endless. I will say, if you're really interested in mechanical trades, like, you need to do a lot of studying, you need to read a lot, and like you should be looking at manufacturers' data and all of their IOMs, their installation and operation manuals and submittals and things like that, because there's a lot of information in there that you'll glean and you'll learn to ask more questions from. And if you're really gonna excel in this field, what you're gonna do is you're gonna ask a lot of questions. I promise you, you're gonna ask a lot of questions, and those questions will lead you to more questions, and falling down those rabbit holes will eventually lead you to answers. Not always the answers you were seeking or looking for at the time, but probably answers that you'll use later, or that somebody else can use. And so, all of the things are useful. um, I would say one of the really big things that I suggest, once you're actually working, or if you're in a good community where you can talk to people in Discord or something like that, if you're actually talking to people like on the phone, other technicians and things like that, in group Discord call chats and or whatever, and you're discussing the things that you've worked on, the things that you've learned, um, and it's really a numbers thing, right? You want to get exposed to different situations and different pieces of information and different technicians, and how they relate them to you will help you learn your own things. And so if you're one technician and you're running whatever, let's say 5 calls a day or whatever the number is, depending on what you do. If it's commercial, you could do 1 or 2. If it's residential, you may do 8 or 10. But let's just say it's 5 a day for number's sake, right? And if you're only experiencing those 5 a day, that's all the experience that you're really getting. Now, let's say that you're calling 5 other techs that day, and you talk to them about the 5 calls that they ran. And now all of a sudden you're getting exposed to 25 different calls, right? Or if you're in a Discord call and you talk to 10 other techs that day, you know what I mean? Now you got the good excerpts and the good information condensed down from 50 calls or whatever, right? And so all of those different communities are good things. You need to engage in them, though. You need to interact with them and ask questions, and that's where you'll really learn and you'll grow. What the crux of this is, I guess, is that you get out of the trades what you put into it, right? And so if you're willing to go the extra mile and you're willing to really engage and read and study and work hard and whatever it is, and the combination of all those things, you'll excel. But it is a testament. It is trials, right? It's tribulations, and so like, you'll be out working on a call so one night and it's 10 o'clock at night and you don't know what to do and you don't know who to call, and like you're reading manuals and like it has to run right now and you want to cry, right? But you learn from that and you grow from that, and you figure out what it is, and you come to a resolution, and it's cool, unlike anything else.
That's great. That's great insights. So there you have it, guys. The industry is growing more than ever. You have to put what you want to get out. So start putting some efforts if you want to get started, and join the trade community which you are building, where people like Joe hang out, ask them questions, build relationships with them, so you and all of us can grow together and gain some new knowledge. So yeah. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one.